And it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes in all of sports. Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. It is time again for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. A more low-key, mellow Too Many Guys Soccer Show. You know, the post-Mother's Day edition. First off, big shouts out to all of the moms out there. Adorable young children. I don't know about you. I spent the weekend with my mom. She was up from Delaware. We went out for crabs yesterday.
Oh, nice.
It is an experience going for crabs with my mother and my in-laws.
Yeah,
My in-laws get it in.
of course. They're Marylanders.
My father-in-law brought his own salt. He brought his own mustard. He mixed it up in a Tupperware jar and brought it with him and put it on the table and was like, yeah, I brought my own sauce. And what?
Nice.
He had Old Bay all up and down his, he broke a sweat.
Did he have the did he have the bib on and everything?
No, he didn't have the bib on, but and you can't use a hammer at that table.
Okay. Where'd you guys? Which spot did you hit up? Did you guys go out?
Up Jimmy's Famous Seafood in Baltimore, which is the spot that we normally hit up.
Yeah, that place is good.
Yeah. I would seriously suggest it. And the crabs are sweet this year, and they're good.
Yeah. All right.
They're really good this year. They were early season crabs.
That's cool. So. Yeah, I took my lovely wife wanted to do just some family stuff. So this was definitely it's been a busy year for everyone, I'm sure, and people trying to just get back on track with regular life. And I asked my wife on Thursday, I was like, hey, so what do you want to do for Mother's Day? And her eyes got really big, and she's like, that's this weekend? And I was like, yeah, I know. That's how rough it's been. We've all forgot. But, we went and got some plants for the garden in the back and some more vegetables to plant and a couple of house plants. And then we went to another consignment store and got some fun antique-y kind of stuff. And then my wife took my son to the park, and it was just a very low-key day. So that was nice. Again, this was a low-key weekend, and I think it's something that we all needed. I know this show can use some show's been a little intense recently, so we got to bring Leo the Italian. He's always pretty chill,
Yeah, he's got that California surfer vibe going. But it was nice. I mean, even on Mother's Day, to be out and about and start to feel like things were getting back to normal just a little bit.
It was nice to just see people walking around, with no masks on, just outside, just walking around. That was nice to see, definitely.
And to be able to feel comfortable for the first time with the six of us being together, out at a place, it was nice. We went to my mom's favorite restaurant on Thursday, and her favorite waiter was back, and the owner was back after 14 months, and it was just a really good weekend.
Yeah. Nice.
And like you said, kind of low key, being able to relax, enjoy the family. We were talking offline, and we said we'll start with this. It was just even kind of a low key weekend for football. The games were on. It seemed like there weren't any stadium protests. The narrative wasn't about the ESL, and we didn't have a lot of haranguing about VAR. It was just nice to put on a couple of games this weekend and actually enjoy chatter about the product on the pitch.
Agree. I know we're going to get Chelsea Mike on later to talk about some more the lower league action, but yeah, there was all across all leagues. There was just focus on what's going on. Focus on, if this team wins, what does that mean? If this team wins, what does that mean? Is this team trying to jump a spot? Are there some, really focusing on the relegation situations in some of these other leagues? I know in the Premier League, it's pretty much, we could pretty much
as of 5:00 this afternoon, it is done. We know that Fulham, West Brom, and Sheffield United will be going down.
Yeah.
And yesterday's match between Everton and West Ham guaranteed that Man United will join Manchester City in the Champions League, and Manchester United's win over Aston Villa guaranteed that they can finish. They can't finish lower than Liverpool.
Yeah.
So,
and good wins.
Ole's win gives him 70 points for the season, which is a record for him. Hence all the Solskjaer jerseys in the background.
Hey,
celebrating Ole at the wheel because, on the pitch, it's been a good couple of days for them, and it was nice to enjoy that. Clinching the Champions League, knowing that you're going to finish higher than Liverpool, and then the big news today that Edinson Cavani is back for a year.
Yeah, our esteemed correspondent London Sean said that he thinks that's a very, very, very positive sign, and I agree. And I know Cavani was wanting to go back to South America, and the Uruguayan FA was like, dude, stay over there one more year. Just stay. Just stay. And I think anybody in their right mind would definitely agree that the best sub this year has been Edinson Cavani. I mean, I don't think it's really close. When you look at a guy who's consistently come off the bench in the Premier League, you can't say anyone's been more impactful than Cavani, especially when it seems like Man U has been struggling to kind of like open a game up, or they've been a little directionless at times with their buildup, and he comes in and it's almost like they just fall behind him, and especially for a guy who's like mid-30s and can still come out there and just command respect and get behind a defense. And he doesn't even score like the fluky tap in, Chicharito style. Nothing against Chicharito, but that goal hawk that he was. He's putting in some really, really beautiful plays. I mean, they're really, really exciting to watch. And I think outside of maybe 3 teams, there's not a team in the Premier League he couldn't start for.
I think that his impact, it goes beyond just coming off the bench in those couple of games that he has and dragging them back. One against West Ham.
That's a good point. The dragging them back. I think that's the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
He's been able to drag them back from them, but then he's also been key when he started in allowing people to function in positions and play roles that they feel more comfortable with. His positioning opens up avenues for Marcus Rashford to get into. It opens up passages of play for Mason Greenwood to attack from the wings. He can read Bruno Fernandez's service better than just about anybody else, which also helps out Paul Pogba. Even though we know he's not a 50 game a season player anymore, right? He gives them that number, that option. He can play. He helps settle the lineup, and it's a big position that they don't need to go and invest in next year. That means that you can go and focus on other 3 players around the park without having to go out and get that number 9 next year, right?
Yep.
You could even say, okay, we're going to go and look at somebody like a Jonathan David and see if we can bring him in as a younger version and give him the opportunity to learn under Edinson Cavani, and then see if he can lead the line next year, or at least give us that option that Cavani was giving us and kind of grow into that role, right? So I think securing him for next season is a great one. It also shows that they mean business, and that they want to push on, and they're not trying to restart. And we got this locked down. We got it locked down early. Yeah, there were some bumps in the road, but here's an addition that we made. It worked out well. We're going to keep at it. We're not at risk of losing him. He says that he wants to be here. He believes in the club. He wants to move forward with it. And you have this air around a club for the first time since Alex Ferguson left, of positivity, surety, and at least on the pitch, the feeling that things on the red half of United are heading in the right direction, getting back towards it with a measure of planning and consistency. We don't expect the same start and stop sort of nature, because with it was a false dawn a little bit with Louis van Gaal. They
Mm-hmm.
made the Champions League. They looked like one of the best teams in England at the end of that
Mm-hmm.
season. But then,
Mm-hmm.
the second season, the wheels started to fall off, and we knew that was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
With Jose, we always knew it was just going to be a matter of time.
Right.
That's kind of stop the decline, try and
Yeah.
stop the rot. But in the end, it just caused more rot.
Yeah.
OGS, you can
But
say,
you
yeah,
still won 2 trophies.
we still
Even
won
with
2
Jose,
trophies.
you still, and one of them was a European trophy. So even with the Jose being Jose, you could still walk out of that particular tenure and say it was successful, even for Manchester United standards. I still think you can consider that to be successful, even if he left it in somewhat shambles after he left. But seeing as how though that I don't think even as Man U has sort of been the staple second best team in the Premier League in the past few months, just hearing Man U fans and people, there still wasn't a buy-in, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that was incorrect, but I feel like now, as we're down to the last 4 games of the season, you're finally kind of hearing what you're saying. It's like this seems to be working, and it seems like the foundation is really there, with just a couple of really shrewd buys over the past couple of years. And you mean you went from overspending for Bruno Fernandes to now him looking like a bargain. So, it's worked out in a way that I don't think anyone expected, even people who are Man United people. I don't think it was expected that it would look like a team that now I don't think you could pick them outside the top 3 next year. I don't.
I don't think so, and I think and you need to make a couple of other shrewd buys. He needs to be consistent on, and you're certainly right. Whether Bruno Fernandes was a stroke of luck or sheet negotiation, we don't know for sure. But it's definitely, look, that happens every once in a while.
Oh yeah, it happens. Oh yeah.
It happens with Cristiano Ronaldo. You bought him, you hoped that he would be a good player. I don't know if you thought he was ever going to turn into the player that he did. It happened, I guess you could say it happened to a certain extent with Thierry Henry or Patrick Vieira. Did you think they were really going to be who they were?
It also happened with Eric Cantona. I mean, but
Eddie Van der Sar.
Yeah, but look at Arsenal had a 5-year stretch where they signed Lundberg, Henry, Robert Pires, Vieira, and Bergkamp in a 5-year stretch. I don't think anyone would say that they expected all 5 of those players to hit the way they did. So yeah, sometimes you can catch that lightning and all of a sudden things are just really falling into place. So and I don't think Henry, no way. No way. He was coming out of playing at Juventus where it was wondering if he was going to be even a player that was going to be able to remain in the French setup for much longer, as opposed to being some now considered to be the greatest player ever in the Premier League. So it's really like, you don't know what you're going to get. And it really is important to make sure that things fit. You see lots of players that don't fit in a system or fit with a coach, and you wonder why they're not performing. And then they go to another team at another level or another league, and all of a sudden, boom, they start performing. So it's the cocktail's got to be right. And for Manchester United, it sounds like Ole is, he's mixing the olives up pretty good, man. It's working out.
A couple of other players, and he's still learning on the job. But
he's still learning on the job. That's what you got to respect.
But he's learning on the job, but he's also, you can see signs all the way around of improvement. Some still have a long way to go. Like, is Fred still my number one choice at defensive midfielder? No, but he's not a disaster anymore.
No, he's not. He's not a disaster. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has shown a lot of improvement as well. He was an overspend too. That's now looking like he's worth the money. So, and then but like you say what you want about, people are still not totally enamored with Marcus Rashford. He's still 23. I mean, he's still really young, and he still can grow into a even more. I think he's a great player. I think he can still grow into even more phenomenal.
Still probably one of the most valuable players. I think the problem with him is that, like we talk about tweeners in basketball and American football, he's way too direct to be an out and out winger, but his shot is not consistent enough to play through as a number 9 anymore. but he's such an effective hybrid that it makes it worthwhile to keep him out there.
Yeah.
He probably would have been he's kind of a throwback. Like, could you imagine him playing as a second striker to Edinson Cavani in a straight like 4-4-2 system? I think that might benefit him a little more than the four, but very few people play with two strikers now. And I think sometimes more teams should.
I think they should. Absolutely, I think they should. Before we bring in Cam, though, I just wanted to say I have not been too pleased with when Arsenal brought in Danny Welbeck from Manchester United, I can say that I wasn't necessarily enamored because I felt like Danny Welbeck's biggest issue was he's a striker that can't shoot. But he had a play. It wasn't this past weekend. I think it was the weekend before, though, where he had one of the best little behind the leg traps on a very awkward ball coming from the side, coming from high off of an awkward clearance, tapped it behind his foot, takes it with his left, pops a shot right in the corner and smiled. And that made me smile. So before you bring in Kim, I just want to say, Danny Welbeck, I haven't always been a big supporter of yours, but congratulations. You look great. And it looks like you're still happy and you're still having a good time playing. So good on you.
Well, he's a guy like, you know what? He's the cautionary tale from Marcus Rashford.
Exactly. That's what we think of it. I was like, it seems like Marcus Rashford is the player that we hope Danny Welbeck would have turned into when he got to Arsenal. But I can say Danny Welbeck did have some great plays for us in the FA Cup. You know what I remember though? I know we'd like to talk about how he scored the goal against Manchester United to help Arsenal end their trophy drought, blah, 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 blah. But when Arsenal was playing Leicester and during Leicester's championship run. And, Arsenal swept Leicester out of the 3 games they lost. And they were really late in the game. And it was going to be a draw. And then Danny Welbeck pops in a late header to score. And that was another happy moment for me because they know they haven't come too often. And they're coming even less when we're celebrating Willian scoring his first goal after 35 games for Arsenal. You can see we're struggling a little bit. Maybe it's good that Sean's not here today.
Yeah. We wish him the best. He had some stuff he needed to take care of, so we wish him the best.
Wish him the best.
And his family.
Yep.
We're going to bring in Celtic Cam. Perhaps as we're enjoying a very low key Sunday for our teams, and then there's going the opposite to almost comatose. And one feels, Cam, like Celtic's been a little comatose. I look for Celtic news to talk to you about, and there's nothing. Literally nothing. Like, is there anything going on at this club at the moment?
Yeah, no, the biggest thing I think I've heard in the past 48 hours is Conor McGregor was in talks with Desmond to buy the shares for the club, which of course with everything that's going on at Celtic. But yeah, no, things are pretty low key. I mean, still no managerial announcement. However, it does seem that Eddie Howe is going to be the one taking over, according to journalists, people on the inside. It's really just finalizing the contracts at this point in time, getting his backroom staff organized, and then Scott Brown's going to be playing his last game this week, which is, unbelievable. Celtic without Scott Brown is just a whole new animal. It's going to be weird going forward in seasons not to see him on the pitch. But then, other than that, Edouard, again, reportedly possibly going to Leicester to join Brendan Rodgers. It seems as if that could actually be something that happens. Albeit probably for a lot less than we would have sold him last season, unfortunately. But right now it's just rumors at Celtic Park.
The managerial situation, I guess, it has that become an area of concern amongst Celtic supporters. The fact that, we've gone months with this persistent rumor about Eddie Howe. We've gone months since Neil Lennon stepped down. We're almost at the business end of the season. We are at the business end of the season. Managerial jobs are going to start coming open. Mm-hmm. At what point do they just say, okay, it is time to fish or cut bait with this? Either we're going to hire him and give him what he wants, or we're going to look in another direction before we end up with Ronnie Delia again.
Oh God, don't even say it. Please no. No, I think a lot of the fan base at this point in time is really perplexed by the fact that we haven't brought someone in. With only a few games left in the season, it'd be a perfect opportunity for a new coach to come in, size up the team, see what next transfer window can go out and what can stay. But again, Celtic does unfortunately have a history of kind of muddling and finicking over, the contracts of players and coaches and things like that. So I don't think anyone's surprised, but I think everyone's really frustrated with the managerial handling at this point in time.
So I know the Conor McGregor thing is just a rumor. Is that a situation where you guys would welcome the additional money in spite of the personality, or is it like, dude, can you stay as far away from this as humanly possible?
So divided because a little extra cash in the club. I don't think any Celtic supporter would say that's a bad thing, but a man like Conor McGregor, the guy that punches old men in bars, I don't know if we really want that tailing around our good old club. So Conor McGregor can hang back for a bit in my eyes, I think, at least for now, till we get financially distraught.
And another interesting development that I just picked up, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, was the announcement from the Highland and Lowlands League that they are voting on a proposal to allow Celtic and Rangers B teams to play in, I guess, what would this be, the league right below the professional, the former Scottish Football League, formal Scottish Football League.
Yeah, I believe it's called the Highland or the Lowland League. I think something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty big development. I think that's going to be really, class for players coming up through Celtic and really hoping to make an impact, for the first team. So I think, I welcome the announcement. I think it's going to be great for Scottish football overall, getting more experienced players into the game in Scotland, and not just for Celtic.
So I'm guessing this would be sort of like, and has the potential to be like what they do in the US and USL Pro. All the US MLS teams have their developmental leagues, or in La Liga in Spain. Barcelona's, they all have their B teams that play, and it's really simply that you can't play in the same division as your parent clubs. So on the off chance that Celtic and Rangers were able to be relegated, they would move down to the division, whatever. What is the resistance to this? The fact that it would add another team, that it would just be more money for Celtic and Rangers? I don't see a problem with giving opportunities for what will largely be a lot of local kids to play professional game and bring in the additional revenue that is associated with having Celtic and Rangers go to some of these non-professional grounds.
Yeah, I think part of it is, Celtic and Rangers is always being seen by other football clubs in Scotland as the behemoth, the ones holding all the power. And now that they're going to be able to put these B teams into play, getting them to play, more competitive football in this league, I know other supporters are kind of seeing it as a slightly unfair advantage, getting these younger academies that experience that maybe, a player from, say, St. Mirren in their development team is not going to get. So, it's looking to bring Rangers and Celtics some more revenue from some younger, more experienced players, and then also being able to onboard, those experienced kids into the, the Celtic, Scottish Premier Football League team. So, I think that's where the issue with other team supporters lies.
So you guys are in the midst of the final week or two of the split.
The glorious split.
It's weird.
I know ostensibly. Yeah, I mean,
like, is it playoffs or not? Like, what is this?
Well, I'm going to ask you before we get started on whether or not this is some antiquated, cute provincial thing that you guys hold on to because it's different. Explain the split for those people, that person who may be listening who has no idea what the split in the SPL is.
Yeah, so what the split is there's 12 teams, and after the 33rd game, so there's 38 games in the regular season. After the 33rd, essentially the top 6 teams in the table essentially form their own mini league, and then the bottom 6 they form their own mini league, and the remaining 5 games they each play among those other 5 teams that are in their little mini Scottish Premier League. And it's seen a lot of controversy because if the team that prior to the split was in 7th and they have more points than post split than the team in 6th, they actually can't move up the table. So that's where the controversy really lies. Now, the reason that the split was created was because a 33 game season, after they play each team 3 times, is too short. Whereas if you were to tack on another game to play all other teams, that would be 44 games. And so that's too many for a regular season, including any other competitions, European, things like that. The idea is also that, teams that are battling relegation, it gives them a better advantage to stay out of the relegation zone if they're playing teams who are lower on the table. And then teams that are fighting for, access to Champions League or Europa at the top, it's more competitive up there. I know a lot of managers have come out and spoken against. Jim Jeffries years ago, manager of Hearts, came out. He was really against it. But I mean, it's a unique thing to Scottish football. It's fun. It's interesting.
So we get on to one of those things. Is it worthwhile to do? Is it, pay attention to Scottish football because we have this weird thing that we do for the last 5 weeks of the season, and it's uniquely Scottish, and we know how the Scots like to do things that are uniquely Scottish. Or is it to the point anymore where it's like, okay, we could do the unthinkable and just add 2 teams to the SPL, or maybe even 3 teams to the SPL.
Whoa, buddy.
Make it a 15-team league instead of 12-team league.
Carnage. I mean, I think then you have that issue of the number of games. I think that's really the sticking point for the split. If you were to have 15 teams, each playing each other 3 times, that'd be like, 42 games. Now, as you say, adding another team or 2,
The other thing is, it's also a weirdly Scottish thing where you guys play each other 3 times, where most other leagues, it's that simple. And outside the MLS, where it's quirky scheduling combinations where you play some teams 4 times, you play some teams 3 times, you play some teams only once. Mm-hmm. Most leagues, it's a simple, you play home and away.
Yeah. I mean, it's odd. You're right. And no other league is really like, I don't know actually another league that does anything like the split. I can't think of it.
I was reading up on the Belgian league, and they do have a playoff system where the top 4 teams play for the title, and the top the next 4 teams play to get into Europe. But that's the closest thing. Okay. Australia has a playoff like MLS does. But congratulations, Scotland, you're in the company of the US, India, Australia, and Belgium for doing weird things in a soccer league.
And Belgium for only the next 4 years, because they're about to merge with the Eredivisie, so they'll probably go back to having a regular table anyway. So you can only kick around Belgium for 2 more years till 2025.
We're going to try and get our friend from Belgium, Mr. Kurt, on to explain this one to me, because I'm sure he, as a Belgian Pro League aficionado, is going to have a lot to say on this proposed merger. And like most Belgians, he's very pessimistic about everything. So there will never be another Belgian champion of anything, and all the Belgian teams will be relegated within the next year.
They could join the Scottish Premier League. There we go.
It's only a boat ride away.
You know what? And we bring about everything goes back to the European Super League.
I was going to say, there we go. You know who came up with the original idea? The guy that came up with the original idea was David Murray, who was a Rangers owner. He was the original one, obviously trying to get Rangers and Celtic into it because, powerhouses of football in the world, as everybody knows. All bad things come out
Well,
of Rangers, I'm telling you.
yes. Geez. I think I told you the time that I was watching Celtic and Rangers play, Celtic and Real Madrid play, and I was in the press box up at Lincoln Financial Field, and I was sitting in front of one of the Celtic journalists, and the first rule of you're not allowed to cheer or support in the press box, right? Unless it's U.S. football, and then it's fine. U.S. soccer, you're fine. But so I had a green and white hooped polo shirt that I wore in, and he looked at me and he said, "Man, you got a lot of balls on you wearing that in here." I said, "What are you talking about? It's just a green and white striped golf shirt. What am I doing? I don't know." And he just gives me that look like you know what you're doing. So I was talking to my buddy, and it was right after Rangers had gone bankrupt, and Celtic was not wearing a logo on their jersey for that particular game. I don't know why.
Mhm.
And I know for a fact that it's like tradition that the same company sponsors both teams because they just don't want to piss off half of Scotland. So just off the cuff, I said to somebody, I wonder if Tenet is still sponsoring Sevco. And all of a sudden, I just felt like the back of my neck get wet. And he said he laughed so hard he spit his Coke out at me. But I promise you, I had a fan. I had a huge fan and 100 extra Twitter followers because on his Twitter feed was one of the American journos just asked if Celtic Tenet still sponsored Sevco. And I had all these fans amongst the Celtic supporters. He's like, I'm like, and I kept saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. He's like, yeah, you clearly do.
Yeah.
So, what should we be looking for at the end of the season as we come to the tail end of the Scottish League season, Cam? You know, the title's already been decided. Celtic are going. You know, they did secure Champions League football, so they'll be fine for next year as far as that goes. Even though this was a disappointing season, what should we be on the lookout for?
Yes, I think, obviously, hopefully, number one is getting David Moyes in. God, no. Eddie Howe, not David Moyes. God. Getting Eddie Howe in, seeing, the backroom staff he brings with him. And then also, I think there's going to be a real shakeup of the team heading into the transfer market. I think between the new manager and Dominic McKay, I think there's going to be some real clear out of who's there, and then bringing in some new talent. Without a doubt. So I think those are really going to be the two big things I'm keeping an eye out for. I think the backroom staff can sometimes be underrated, but I think with what we've seen this season, Celtic, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think also another item is, I don't know if anyone's seen St. Johnston have had an amazing season this year, winning the League Cup. An absolutely brilliant team. So, I think there's a few other people across Scotland, different teams that really shined this year. So I think it'd be interesting to see Celtic picking up some youth from other teams in Scotland, like they did with Turnbull. So transfers, Eddie Howe, Dominic McKay, the usual stuff, I think.
All right. So we'll get you on in a couple of weeks after season to go back over, give us a forecast for the summer, and then certainly we got to get you on ahead of the Tartan Army storming Europe.
So excited. Gonna be taking days off.
It's a group with you gotta love a group that includes Scotland, the Czech Republic, and England and Croatia.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of air miles saved up, and I'm all vaccinated. So
hey, man.
Who knows? Maybe I'll get over there.
Yeah, that just looks like it's going to be a fun group, and we'll talk about it more when the tournament comes.
I can't wait.
Given the nature of that group and how some of these teams are playing, all they really need is a draw and a win, and they could be on to the knockout stages. Czech Republic's not got a lot, and Croatia's kind of old, man.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where we have a chance with those two teams. You're absolutely right. So, I think that's what we're going to be looking to.
All right, buddy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll have you on in a couple of weeks.
All right, gents. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, Cam. We'll see you.
Have a good night.
Yeah, that split is an odd one.
Yeah,
And
it's weird. It it just totally reeks of what you just said. It reeks of, hey, could somebody pay attention to us, please? We're doing this weird little game thing. This will be fun. Come watch a little bit of St. Johnston versus Celtic, or
I,
Hebron or Aberdeen versus Rangers. Come check it out.
I'm going to be interested to see though if they are able to, with groups like Amazon and CBS All Access, Paramount Plus, picking up NBC, picking up all of these leagues for streaming.
Hmm.
If uh, some of it's going to trickle down to the SPL,
Right.
it makes a lot of broadcasting sense because once you get out of the big four leagues, right? Once you get
Hmm.
beyond the big four and you start looking about like where can we pick up rights, where can we pick up rights cheaply that we can broadcast back in the States,
Hmm.
that would be a good one to have.
Hmm.
ESPN Plus has had it, and Fox Soccer's had it, but they focus so much on the old firm
Right.
that you don't see anything else. And I feel like, if I was a network, I would really consider picking that one up because I don't think it's going to be particularly expensive.
Exactly.
I think the
Exactly.
biggest issue that they have is when you do that, you also have to produce and staff the game, which could be a problem.
Yeah, but come on. We've watched these ESPN games, and I'm wondering if anyone is doing anything at all behind one guy who's sitting at a computer pressing play. Because you'll see they'll have whoever the commentators are. I mean, first of all, you can hack into another some other commentators and just throw them a little bit of extra money to allow you to kind of like take their feed. But I've seen on ESPN when they're playing cup games, sometimes halftime will come and you're basically sitting around for 12 minutes. There's
Yeah, there's
no
no
commentary,
halftime show.
there's
There's
no
no
halftime
commentary.
show, there's no studio show. So the
That was the
production
same way it
quality
was
has
with
to
the
be
Bundes.
pretty low. And it was like, yeah, it was like they were
It was in the
Bundesliga.
Bundesliga last year.
And I found that really odd. I was like, this is one of the best leagues in the world. You have nobody. I mean, you could just have one guy who
Well,
stands there and
that
just
was
goes through some highlights.
also
But
they were doing that a lot during the Bundesliga when the Bundesliga returned last year, and you couldn't even really have a studio show. Like they were calling those games from. I was talking to a lot of people where like MLS and some of these leagues weren't allowing people into the stadium at all. So the people who were calling the MLS games were calling them from the studio. They weren't, and for a long time,
right.
ESPN was calling Champions Leagues from the studio. They weren't even calling them from the stadium.
Yeah, that well, back when they were especially back when the final was on a Wednesday and stuff like that. Yeah, they were right there. I mean, they had the same guys who were calling the game also giving the halftime talk. So, it just struck me funny though that for even this is pre-COVID for cup games that ESPN was streaming, they still had no halftime. They had no pre-show. They had no post-show. And I'm not even saying that you have to. I just thought it would be nice, at least at halftime, to just have someone there to just talk about the highlights, just one person.
So
But
you see
but granted, though, but also say this though, I don't think that would do anything for them as far as having more eyeballs on the game. If you're interested in watching a cup game, you're going to watch the cup game regardless of the production quality. You're still going to watch the game. It wasn't like I stopped streaming because they didn't have some schmuck in there to tell me what happened, even though I could see it for myself. It's just because it was something I was used to seeing.
And the other thing at halftime's the time where you get up, you get some food, you get a
Right.
beer,
Go to
you
go to
go
the
to your bathroom,
take
do
the
all
dog
that
out
sort
real
of
quick.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, walk the kids, pet the wife, do all that sort of stuff because you've been sitting stationary for 45 minutes and there's no commercial breaks. I just think it would be an interesting broadcast package to have. It would be an interesting slate of games, and I think because it's Scotland, it would be more easily relatable to the American fans because everything's in English. It
English
makes it
speaking,
easier.
Yep.
A lot of times it's hard to follow, or it has been in the past harder to follow things like the Bundesliga and stuff because so much of what you get is coming through foreign language media, right? when it's English language, when it's Scotland, when it's the Premier League, it's easier to read the
It is.
BBC and to keep up
Right.
on teams
But
and
Mike,
follow
but
the
we've also
information.
seen it's relatively easy to watch like hurling and stuff that takes place in Ireland because they are speaking English in their broadcasts. So
Mhm.
yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it would be
Yeah.
quite wise to get Scotland on there to get, and also even if you just start with Old Firm coverage, there's enough that have come. There's enough people that American soccer fans and even the lay soccer fans. There's enough names they would recognize that have played for some of these teams in Scotland, and a fair amount of American players have played in Scotland. So it would be. It would be. I don't think it would be. It would. It would be inexpensive in comparison to what they're used to seeing with these other leagues, and I think you would draw eyes. Would I watch? Yeah, I would.
I
I
mean,
would.
if we're talking about, we would watch, League One, League Two, Championship football. I would
Mhm.
definitely, from my perspective, I would definitely rather put on a Celtic match
Yeah.
than I would a League Two match.
I would watch a Hibernian Aberdeen match before I'd watch a League Two or even a League One match. I would. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would
Absolutely. Unless
definitely.
unless there was some like big implication of the match, like a team was going to get relegated if they lost, or a team was going to win their playoff or something like that. But that's pretty much it. Other than that, I would much rather watch like a Hibernian Aberdeen game. I would find that quite interesting.
I
Probably
would
get a
rather
jersey.
watch that than some of the mid-table Bundesliga games.
Mhm.
And I enjoy the
Absolutely.
Bundesliga.
Yeah.
And I would definitely watch that before I would watch France.
Mhm. Yeah.
Most of France.
Most of France. I mean, and
Most of Germany, most of Spain, and much of Italy.
much of Italy, yeah. I think outside the big
Italy
five teams in
has
Italy, I wouldn't. I mean, outside of Lazio, Roma, Juve, the Milan teams, maybe Napoli, maybe Atalanta.
Fiorentina.
Now Atalanta, but like just now, yeah, and then Fiorentina. Outside of those teams, no, I wouldn't be watching it. And France, I'm sorry, I don't watch. I might watch a Marseille Monaco game if I thought that if it was on at the right time. I don't watch PSG games. I think they're boring. So I really don't.
You know what the funny thing was, though, like when I started really watching a lot of soccer, used to enjoy. Granted, it was after Calciopoli, but I was reading an interesting thing about the Calciopoli and how like Italian football's never recovered. And the only reason I was reading that was because the president of Serie A came out and said today that if Juve doesn't back off, they're going to expel them from Serie A. And everybody, well, oh my God, this can't happen. I was like, yeah, dude, it did like
just
15 years ago.
Yeah, just did. It just did. In fact,
we just did this 15 years ago.
Yeah, and the start of their championship run where they won like 8 in a row, they just kind of came back before that. They hadn't been in the league very long, and so they you guys not remember, but we remember there was a long stretch of time where they weren't there, and the Italian league got on just fine without them.
One season.
Yeah, but was there an issue?
No, and it was they barnstormed through Serie B.
Seasons. I thought they had to go down to the third level.
They went down to the second level. They went down to Serie B.
They had to go down too.
They missed the Champions League for 2 seasons, right? Because they didn't make the Champions League. Of course, they couldn't play in the Champions League when they were in Serie B. And then the next season back, they had to win their way in. So they were out of the Champions League for 2 years, right? But they barnstormed. I think they were unbeaten in Serie B.
Yeah. I think so.
Originally, they had taken something ridiculous like a 44-point deduction in Serie B. They'd taken a 30-point deduction in Serie B, but that was later overturned to 9, which gave them.
That's right, and that's why they didn't. That's why they were able to come back up. Because I was like, I could have like I thought they had to stay down for 2 years, but I forgot about the overturn of the point deduction. That's right. Deduction, I remember that
because had they had the overturn and had they lost those 10 wins, they might have even been relegated to Serie C, right? But no, they came back just fine, and a decade later they're playing in the Champions League, right?
Yeah.
That's that fiat money for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we bring in Rob, though, I just wanted to say that but the fact that Juve wasn't necessarily like they were starting to kind of dip before the Super League even came out. They were struggling a little bit. Yeah, if Juve does get kicked out, again, it'll probably be a similar situation where they might be gone for a year, or they just threaten it and then pull the plug in August, and then they'll be right back in Syria. I just don't see it being that big of a deal.
One of the things though that the article was mentioning was that the revenue and the quality of just ever since that point in time has steadily declined over the last. It's so even in my viewing habits, right, where I used to be really super excited to see Roma play Fiorentino or the Milan Derby or stuff like that, when you had players like Totti and Kaká and players like that on those teams, like it's been such a steady decline that I don't know, like I don't actually know outside of this conversation that we're having right now that the last time that I've mentioned Florence.
Yeah, I don't know either, to be honest with you. I don't know.
I mean,
either.
I remember them being a good team. I remember them being in the Champions League. I remember them being a really great Italian team. And I remember some of the players that used to play on that team and the purple jerseys and stuff like that. And other than when I was in Florence and I picked up the jersey and the scarf last time I was around, I'm trying to really think if I can remember right now who plays for them.
Oh, I would have no idea. No idea.
Like, I don't even remember, like, you talk about a team that just, like, where'd they go?
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, Roma's always going to be somewhat relevant because they always make themselves somewhat relevant.
Right.
But even they've been in steady decline since Totti and scoring the hat tricks in the Stadio Olimpico and stuff like that. You know, they're living on past glory.
Yeah.
And it would be nice. And that's why I said, like, I would almost rather watch, as much as there are historic teams in Italy that I love watching, teams that I have some sort of emotional attachment to. It's hard for me to say, like, I would choose to watch them over Scottish. We're going to turn to German football. As Rob is sitting in his Bayern jersey with his Bundesliga medal on that he won.
He's got 49 of them, so you know.
Yeah. The rumor is that they're going to bypass the 5th star on the jersey and just go to 7. But we do need to talk to him about, you know, Bayern clinching, but more importantly, the merry-go-round, the managerial merry-go-round in the Bundesliga. Stead,
hey, Rob, real quick, just go to share screen and just make sure your options come up. You don't have to actually share, but I just want to make sure everything's set so your options come up that you can share.
It says desktop and
okay,
got
good.
it.
We're good to go. All right, awesome.
So, Bayern clinched their 3,973,654th consecutive Bundesliga title this weekend. Is there anything else, Rob, to say about that other than they got another one?
I mean, look. I mean, Bayern had not been the best all season, and no other team just stepped up. So, you know, somebody like you know, like a money ball. It's like when someone gives you a base, you take the base. You know, just they gave us a title, and we took the title. And simple as that. I mean, like it's not our fault. We win more, and everybody else stinks it up. You know, I mean, sorry. You know, it's like, you know, do we have to apologize like for winning?
No, and you know? I don't want it to come across like
yes, you do, you know, Rob. Apologize.
Yeah, you do. just like the Yankees have to apologize for all of their titles. Bayern should for. I'm going to use a Formula One reference. I was watching the race, and they were talking about Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, and they were saying how, you know, Lewis Hamilton is so good and so consistent that any mistake that Verstappen or the team makes, he's going to capitalize. So they have to be perfect. You know, it seems like with Bayern right now, they're just so consistent in the league that, you almost have to have a perfect season. Not that you don't lose a game, but you can't afford those bobbles or those dips in form. You need to capitalize on every mistake that they make. And that's where teams struggle because, when it's their opportunity to step up and take it, it just seems like other teams in the Bundesliga just don't have that ability right now.
Yeah, no, like even last season, when Niko Kovac got fired, Bayern were in seventh in the league, and it was ripe for the taking. And there was a big battle with Gladbach and Leipzig and Dortmund up at the top, and Bayern pretty much were just about perfect, and they won the league with a decent difference. So
Dortmund
I mean,
laid
that's
some
what it took
eggs
to win
too.
it.
Dortmund had some bad losses too last
Yep,
season. Really bad
definitely.
games that they should
And
have won. I mean, Dortmund. That I will give you that. I felt like last year when, especially after we kind of came back with the show and we were kind of forced to pay attention to Bundesliga. So we, as Mike and I do, we went back. We were doing our research. We were talking about it, and you just kind of saw Dortmund should have won that league, and they just they asked the bed and they punted it away, which is sad.
We've seen that with the other one. Lucien Favre just couldn't get Dortmund across the line, and that's why he's going to end up probably without a job. Julian Nagelsmann just doesn't have the horses. There's not another team that has what Klopp did at Dortmund for that 2 years that's able to. And you almost feel like after that period where Bayern lost those ones to a very, very, let's be honest, that was a very good Dortmund team, right? That was a great Dortmund team. It was a really good Bayern team. It was a great Dortmund team. You know how we know this? They played each other in the Champions League final, and it was good.
It was a great game.
It was a great game that went to extra time. I remember.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So those were two.
Bayern Robin, man.
Those were two very, 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 very good teams. And it's like, at this point, Bayern afterwards said, no, we will never let another German team get that good again.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Bayern mentality is like, look, they win a league and it's important to them, and they feel that league performance is what really stands out, like, for a manager, right? Because the Bayern hierarchy recognizes that Champions League is really, really tough to win it. A lot of things have to go right, especially on the injury front as well. And with Bayern playing so many games, it can, bite a club like Bayern in the tush, right? And then that's what happened this season when Robert Lewandowski got hurt and he was out, and we lost on goal difference. Okay, but you're right. Like, Bayern are built to win Champions League. They want to be the best in the world. I mean, they know, like, obviously they want to be the best in Germany, but they're built to be the best in the world, and especially in Europe. They want to be the best in everything. And it's not good enough for them to win the Bundesliga every time. Yeah, they win, and it matters, but the team is built and signed for major competitions against the top clubs, and it's going to take a club, either like a Leipzig probably, to become a little daring and do something drastic to really take them on. And they've had their chances. Bayern are prone to make mistakes. You just like Stead said, you have to capitalize on them. And if you don't, then you pay the price and it's over, right? And you have to use all your resources very, very well and efficiently, and you have to pretty much make every correct decision on the personnel front. And Bayern, they just have such firepower that they can miss on a couple, aka Bruno Sarr, as a backup right back, and they still win it. Look at that. I mean, what are you gonna do?
We know where Dortmund stands? We're going to bring in young talent. We're going to keep them. We're going to hopefully put together the best team that we can put together. We endeavor to be where we are, but we're not a financial juggernaut, right? We know who they are as a club. They have proven it to us time and time again. Does Leipzig have that ambition? Because we know financially backed by Red Bull, they have the financial wherewithal, but they've never seemed to flex that muscle yet.
Yeah, no. The strategy for Leipzig for the last, several years has been build, take kids, make them stars, and sell them. And only I think now it's up to them to really use the money that they make from these players, like Timo Werner money, Upamecano money, even Julius Nagelsmann money, potentially Konate money, and do something with it. And that means getting players and keeping them, and not selling them off, because only then, when you have a star nucleus, can you really compete at the top level. That's what Bayern have. Lewandowski, Muller, Neuer, Kimmich, Goretzka, like that nucleus, Coman, Gnabry, they've been around, for a few years now together. And, Leipzig, if they want to compete, they're going to have to use that financial windfall to still be ambitious as far as, looking for talent where talent isn't found by the other big clubs. And once they cultivate that and grow them, do not sell them and keep them, and use their financial wherewithal to sign them to deals, sign them to extensions. Don't give them release clauses. And that means paying players higher salaries, and really compete and solidify and your place in the Bundesliga. And only then can they compete. And that's up to them to do that. And will they do that? I don't know. They're not built for that. They have not shown any indication that they want to go that route yet. But if they want to, they can. And that's probably the most dangerous part of them all, because they do have that wherewithal. They do have that financial might if they want to use it. And they're so smart of finding these players, from all over the globe, and also through their other teams like Salzburg and New York Red Bull. So they can do it. Will they do it? I don't know. We shall see.
So Bayern's ethos over the last couple of years, going back a while, has been 2 or 3 players a transfer window, right? Are there any names that you're looking at who would be those 2 or 3 players that they're going to bring in to reinforce the squad? We know that David Alaba is probably going to be gone. Where Lewandowski decides to go is up to him. Certainly there's a need in the center of defense, because as much as I love Jerome Boateng, he was Methuselah old about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we looking at? Who are they going to grab? Or do they already have players in the system that they're just going to promote through to fill some of these needs that they have?
So you got 3 players leaving, and David Alaba's gone, Jerome Boateng's gone, and Javi Martinez is gone, right? So, and they're big salary players. So it's a big deal. Upamecano's coming from Leipzig on a release clause that Bayern have met. So that is going to be their big signing. And it looks like Bayern are trying to find players. They're undervalued. They're actually looking at the championship, for example. I heard a player, I forget where he plays at, named Omar Richards. They're looking at that. And they're going to continue. They have a couple academy products. Chris Richards is coming back from loan over from Hoffenheim. But it looks like Hoffenheim wants to keep him for another year. I don't know what's going to go on with that. Tanguy Nianzou, a center back, the young center back from PSG that they signed, who incidentally got a red card last week, so his season is done. He had some talent, and on the center back and defensive mid position, so he's going to get finally a full season, hopefully injury free. And they have a couple other players like Adrian Fines coming back from the Netherlands. He's also actually a Bavarian player. who came through the academy. He's going to come back, but whether he's sold off or not, it's a different story. But no, up in McConnell from Leipzig, the center back is it as far as the big money goes, because Bayern just don't have the cash to really splash when it comes to big signings. They have been really affected by COVID. While they still are profitable, they just don't have the big owner backing them up to really open up the wallet. And so it's gonna, for the most part, be the same players, other than a few additions here and there. The core is going to stay the same, and is up to incoming manager Julian Nagelsmann to figure it out, until money becomes more abundant.
So great transition. Julian Nagelsmann is leaving Red Bull to go to Bayern. Somebody's leaving to go to Red Bull. Basically, this managerial merry-go-round apparently has Stead, or has Coach G and Coach Matt going to Schalke. Instead, you and I are taking over Greuther Fürth. Okay, so I need somebody to explain how this is all working, because Jesse Marsch is so Nagelsmann is going from Red Bull to Bayern. Jesse Marsch is going from Salzburg to Red Bull, and I can't make sense of this. It's making my head hurt. All I know is that apparently I got a job in the Bundesliga, coaching in Bundesliga 2, and I didn't know about it until yesterday. So can you please explain this to me?
So for those who will be watching this show on the YouTubes, and I will also explain it on voice, I have prepared a little bit of a PowerPoint with the Bundesliga carousel, as I call it. Let's see if it works.
Oh yes, here we go.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So for the first part, we got Adi Hutter going from Eintracht Frankfurt to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and the current manager of Gladbach, Marco Rose, is leaving leaving to go to Dortmund, and Dortmund paid a release clause for him, about 5 million euros. So that's interesting. So that's the first leg over there. Okay. Now, Terzic, the current manager, who's the caretaker manager, he was an assistant under Lucien Favre, I believe. He might finish in a high Champions League spot, and he's going to be out of a job. And the idea was for him was to potentially go back to the reserves or be an assistant and wait your turn again. But now, because he's doing somewhat decent with Dortmund, it might keep him in Champions League.
They won the last 5.
There are a couple clubs he's going to become a hot commodity. A couple of clubs will be sniffing for him, so he's potentially earn a job somewhere in the Bundesliga. So that's that. So there you go. So the interesting part is that the current manager of Dortmund, Terzic, he's gonna not have a job, and he's gonna be replaced by Marco Rose, who potentially might not lead Gladbach to European play.
So the guy who gets you into Europe, he loses a job to a guy who didn't. All right, yeah, gotta love it. Only in Germany.
There you go. So only in Deutschland. All right. So then at the bottom over here, we have former New York Red Bull manager, former assistant manager at RB Leipzig, and current manager at Red Bull Salzburg, Jesse Marsch, the American, moving over to RB Leipzig. So he's earned a promotion. He's done well at Salzburg. He looks like he's going to win the double over there as well. And he's going to Leipzig. And the current manager at Leipzig, aka Julius Nagelsmann, he is moving over to Bayern on it looks like a 25 million euro release. It's a big money. So you talked about Bayern's acquisitions, up in McConnell being one of them, Julius Nagelsmann being number 2. So there we go. All the money splashed already for a manager and a player. And now potentially the current manager of Bayern, Hans-Dieter Flick, also known as Hansi, also affectionately known as Uncle Hansi, he is potentially leaving. He's leaving Bayern definitely to go potentially coach the German national team after the Euros.
Why hasn't that deal been completed yet? Because I think the expectation was when Hansi Flick announced that he was stepping down from Bayern Munich. For whatever reason, he chose to step down from Bayern Munich. It doesn't feel like he was forced out of Bayern Munich, right? The assumption was that he wanted to take over the German national team. Like, he had been in the job at Bayern for the managerial job for about 18 months. You know, he won the Champions League. He won the league. He's won the league twice. The assumption was he was going to take over the German national team right away, but nothing. Where is the disconnect?
Well, technically, Hansi Flick is still under contract at Bayern. They have not. They're going to grant his release, but they're still working out a deal on how to do it. So the rumor is that the DFB will not pay money for a manager to release him out of his contract. They will not do it. So the rumor is that Bayern and the DFB are going to work out a deal, potentially a couple exhibition matches where Bayern keep the ticket sales, and that will be enough for it. Also, I think they don't want to announce a new manager until Jogi Löw is out when he leaves after the Euros. So I think after the Euros, you'll see an official announcement. There'll potentially be a leap, but nothing official will be until July sometime.
But it just seems like you pointed out, you have a manager at Borussia Dortmund who is on the verge of leading them to Europe and making a big comeback. Part of the reason why Lucien Favre was fired in the first place was because of his failings in the league. All of a sudden, you've got a guy who led him back in the league. He's going to be out without a job, right? Is there a possibility that somehow Hansi Flick played this wrong and, is going to somehow be sent home as a redundancy from Bayern Munich because he's under contract with them, but he said he was leaving, but to go to the German national team, and the German national team is like, we're not paying for him, so he's kind of like in this weird contract limbo for a year or two?
No, so it's interesting you say that, because there is an angle where you can say that Hansi Flick played it right. He's sort of forcing Bayern's hand here. There has been rumblings that Hansi Flick and Salihamidzic, the sporting director, do not get along, and they've butted heads on the transfers. Specifically, a couple of players like Bruno Sarr, who came over from Marseille, who's been a total bust. And because of that, Hansi Flick just said, you know what? I won everything. I've done it all. I have nothing else to really prove here. I announced I'm not going to announce that I'm leaving. Now, the Bayern manager was really upset about that, because they had a discussion that they would talk about, potentially, a contract situation and letting him go after the game versus Mainz. That didn't happen. Hansi Flick blew the lid open because he told the players already, and he was afraid that it was going to leak out. This is what he said. He was afraid it was going to leak out, so he wanted to beat the media to the punch. This is what it is. The Bayern manager and management did not like it, and it was a big to-do. They made official press announcements where it was very hostile. But Hansi's going to leave. At the end of the day, Bayern's going to keep a person under employment who doesn't want to be there, and so they'll be in agreement potentially with the DFB. It won't be a release clause. It'll be some sort of backdoor deal where they'll have an exhibition match or so. Will they have some of the players from Bayern play both sides? They'll play Bayern for one half, they'll play for Germany for the other half. But that's really about it, But Hansi, for a lot of the fans, it's really divided the issue. We love Hansi for what he's done, and he seems like such a relatable guy. And at the other hand, there's people who feel that the club is bigger than the manager, and so while a manager does not control transfers and everything, he should have a say, but maybe he overstepped his bounds here. So it has divided the fan base, and you can make an argument either way, whether he played it right or wrong. And at the end of the day, we will miss him. We will hold him dear to our hearts, and we will always remember what he did for us. And he has said that he has not shut the door about coming back. He's still very young. He has done a lot at the club, and he seems like he knows the club game very well. He might come back. You never know. It's happened before. Like Jupp Heynckes came back like 3 times. So we shall see.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you very much for explaining all of those go-rounds to us, and we'll get you back in a couple of weeks after the season to wrap it up for us. So take care and go Bayern Munich.
Have a good one, gents.
Thanks again, Rob. Thanks.
Bye.
That could be a very interesting situation for a number of teams, right?
Yeah.
You've got 2 managers right now with a serious European credentials who could potentially be on gardening leave next year.
The Dortmund issue. That's the one that really is kind of like, oh yeah, because you look, Dortmund's like they've won another 5 of the last 5. I believe they may be even more than that, but they've been playing well, really well, and you're seeing some of these young players have taken that next step. Look, Gio Reyna is looking like he can overtake Pulisic as the best American player right now. He really, really is showing a lot of promise there. So it's interesting to see what's happening over there at Dortmund.
Yeah, I saw them in the Cup semifinal game, and they were against lower league competition, so it was hard to make a judgment about them. But they were just clinical, right?
Yeah,
they were just clinical, even with Erling Haaland and street close that game. But I didn't think much of it because you're playing like a lower division side.
Right.
But now I'm paying attention, and I'm like, oh, that could be new. And then you start to wonder if somebody will prematurely pull the plug because they're like, oh, well, this guy with this track record is out there, right? And if we don't get so-and-so now, the other one is Nagelsmann. Like, he's got a proven track record. He can go and manage the German national team is he going to be Jogi Löw and stay at the German national team for decades, or is this going to be one of those ones where, a lot of national team managers, it's 4 years and you're done? And is there going to be any interest from the club game for Jogi Löw? I've seen very few people who start at whose big break is at national team level.
Yeah, agreed. He broke in as Klinsmann's assistant and then just took over. And I believe he's older than he looks. Isn't Jogi Löw like in his 60s, I think?
I don't know if he's in his 60s.
I'm going to look that up.
I'm looking it up right now because I didn't think he was that old. But let
me see. Yeah, he's 61.
Wow, he is a lot older.
Yeah, because I just remember it was relatively recently where I was, probably just wasting time clicking around on Wikipedia, and I was shocked that he was as old as he was, considering. Could it's because his hair is all black and he hasn't lost any of it, and as you can see, losing hair is a sign of me getting older.
Stylish.
But he seems pretty chill. He seems to really have the affection of his players in a way that you see a younger manager get. So I was shocked to see that he was already in his 60s.
I thought he would have been in his early to mid 50s. Right?
Yes,
he's at least 6 years.
I figured by now he would be like 52, 53. That's what I thought. Yeah. So when I saw that he was 60, because this was a little while ago, but I saw that he was 60, I was like, whoa. I wasn't expecting that at all.
But I've seen very few managers. Okay, he's older, and I've seen very few managers go from country to club effectively. Right? They're talking about Roberto Martinez coming back from Belgium to take a club job, right? But he went from club to national team and would go back to being a club. I can't think of a manager that I've seen. I know a lot of managers who get club jobs off of playing with national teams, and it would make sense that, if you can be successful when you only have a limited pool, when I give you everything, you should be. But I think that there's such a general disconnect in the way between how club football is played now versus a national team football that it really makes it hard. Like
And
even
he's been with the national team set up for 17 years.
yeah,
That's a long time. I mean, he was an assistant for 2 years, and he's been there since '06. That's a long time. And
he's
then,
been uber successful. I mean,
but before he went there, he was like, I'm looking at some of the teams. He was in Turkish Super League and
mhm.
Austria. I think this one team, Tyrol Innsbruck. Yeah, he was in Austrian football before that. So he hasn't even really been with a kind of like a big setup team. Would be probably, he had a couple of years, his time in Turkey. Because, say what you want, Turkey's still a relatively decent league. So he hasn't really done club work like that in 20 years. 20 years.
But think about it like with Gareth Southgate. Gareth
Yeah.
Southgate managed Middlesbrough, right?
Mhm.
Got relegated, got let go, landed in the England setup, managed a U21 side, and then fell into the job when Sam Allardyce got fired and has had
Right.
it ever since. But
Yeah.
he's Gareth Southgate, Gareth Southgate, but he doesn't have a proven club
Mm-mm.
track record. A lot of these guys who manage national teams for a long time don't end up with great uh, club
Mhm.
credentials, right?
Yeah, it's a totally different animal. But I will say this though, if anyone could do it, I'd say Yogi Low could do it. If anyone could.
I think he probably could. I guess the difference is going to be like, where does he want to go and what does he want to do? And is somebody going to throw enough money? Because he would be the most likely one that I would figure that somebody would go and throw big money after
Right.
right now. Like,
Looks
I
like
don't know.
Frankfurt is going to need a coach.
Frankfurt's going to need a
And they could
coach.
throw some money at him. Yeah.
Spurs are going to need a coach.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
Spurs are going to need a coach.
Spurs are
Spurs are
going
going
to
to
need
need
a
a
coach.
lot, especially after they sell Son and Kane. They're going to need a lot.
Spurs are actually, that would be the one that would make the most sense for me.
It would probably be good for him not to take a club job in
Club
Germany
job there.
too. Yeah, that's probably the
I
best
think
thing
it would be,
for him if he was to do
but
that.
I also wouldn't advise him to take the Spurs job.
No.
You know what's going to happen though. You know what's going to happen.
What?
Here's my prediction. One of my predictions sure to go wrong.
Hold up. Let me type this. Let me break up my pen. All right. We gotta start tracking these predictions, man. I'm gonna start keeping track of these.
England are gonna have a run to the semifinals of the Euros, and Gareth Southgate's gonna get hired as the next Spurs manager off the strength of it.
All right, writing that down.
All right, so but we got to welcome in Chelsea Mike.
Hello?
I don't know why we have to welcome him in, but we're going to welcome him in.
Just, sift through your mediocrity. Well, the potential FA Cup winners, the women's champions of England, on our way to a European championship, defeated the best team in the league this weekend, beat Man City
Oh,
twice, actually,
you know what? They're really feeling themselves now that Tuchel came in.
Somebody's feeling real good right now.
And you know what? Let's be honest.
I'm feeling a lot better than I was in January, I'll tell you that.
But yeah. It'll all be fine. And you know what, Stead? It'll all be fine, but Chelsea always makes the same mistake every year. And you know what that is? They're going to get into the last couple of games of the season, the FA Cup, the last few games of this season, and the Champions League, and they're going to switch their doggone jerseys again.
They're going to wear that
That's what they always
They're going to wear that highlighter
do.
blue. Because they're going to do that because that's their excuse. Because I know, if anything, it's going to be very difficult to beat Manchester City 3 times in one season. That's going to be really hard. And I almost felt like Chelsea should have lost that game.
It's going to be very difficult, but I mean, they are playing some really, really good stuff.
They are
4 goals in 7 games,
and it's fun to watch. Chelsea's fun to watch right now, definitely.
He's got it. He's got it working, and it is not impossible for a manager to play in a way that frustrates Pep Guardiola, right? And sometimes it's not the managers that you think about that frustrate the hell out of Pep Guardiola. Like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has a winning record against Pep Guardiola. Like he has surprisingly done very well against Guardiola. He can't beat Burnley consistently, but he typically does very well against against Pep Guardiola and City, right?
Well, that's what I mean, Thomas Tuchel is now 2-0 against Pep, but he's 0-1 against Sam Allardyce.
Yeah. I sometimes that's just how these things go, and it's not outside the realm of the possible. And it's one of those things where if you are a manager whose innate game plan is something that frustrates City, you know that Pep's not going to make a lot of changes. Pep has never been a guy who said, I need a plan B. He says his whole entire thing has always been, we don't need a plan B. We need to execute plan A better.
And if you can't, I'll get the players who can.
Yeah. And if it's not a matter, he doesn't believe it's the game plan, it's the players, right? And he's take that for what it's worth. Like he's won a lot of games. He's won a lot with this ethos, right? It's just, that's one of those things. And Tuchel sits back and says, like, we're going to let them do this. I am confident enough that in my players that I can do this. Then he could. I'm not saying he will, but he could, right? And Tuchel could become this Chelsea's version of Jurgen Klopp if he can hang around long enough, which I don't think he can, and that's another story. But Mike, one thing they can't do is swap out jerseys before the end of the season, because we know that they have a
especially with that pastel color.
I think last year they had a contractual thing that they had to.
Yeah, it was the end of the. Well, we also know. Remember, they played the 08 Champions League final in a different jersey than they wore the entire season, and we saw how that ended for them. So sometimes they just do this, right?
Yeah.
And it would be a bad idea to do it this year. But where do you want to start? Do you want to start with, and it's not 3 times
I'm
that
excited
they have to beat them. So where do you want to start? You want to start with an FA Cup preview, or do you want to start with the lower leagues?
Yeah, no, let's start with the FA Cup.
Okay.
We'll finish the lower leagues. We got that way. We'll have as much time as we want.
Okay. I've been jazzed about this all day.
I know. I mean, FA Cup. What have you got going on? You've got a Chelsea team that's flying higher than we have all season, peaking at the right time, on a big roll. And they're playing a Leicester City team who does not look spectacular right now. I mean, they're not. Their form is not. They're in the top 4.
This is their April-May form. This is their form in April and May.
Right. They're in the top 4. Feels like barely hanging on. They got a little help from Everton this week, but I mean, there's really not, I'm brimming with confidence because there's nothing really in this game that says to me, we've got a lot to fear with Leicester. Chelsea do have a game midweek. It's against Arsenal, so I mean it's a pretty big derby, but
yeah.
Nobody cares about this game.
No, I mean,
I think the funny thing is, you look at the last 5 games that Chelsea have to play in the season, right? Home to Arsenal, neutral site Leicester, home to Chelsea, away to Villa, and then the Champions League, right? So in their last 5 games, they're playing Leicester City twice, Arsenal, who are Stead, say what you want, they're still Arsenal.
They're still Arsenal. Yeah.
And normally, if I gave you that run in, I would say that was like, oh geez, right? The one game that you're guaranteed to win would hopefully be Villa, and who knows with them. But we've seen, we kind of, like you said, we know what Arsenal are. It depends on, and Chelsea really can't take their foot too far off the gas midweek, Mike, because
Mhm.
they're still only 6 points ahead of West Ham, 7 ahead of Liverpool, although I think that Liverpool's best hope is catching Leicester City, not Chelsea, right?
I would agree. You know what? Coming up into this game, and actually these two games, because I think, to me, this could be disaster, right? Like, we could have our eyes looking forward to the FA Cup final on Sunday, blow it at Arsenal, and then lose the FA Cup final, and then lose or draw against Leicester on next week. And now it's now call me next Thursday and I'm crying. I'm huddled up in the corner. I'm like, Thomas Tuchel's, he's a false god and I hate him and he needs to be fired. Because, 3 managers in a season, why not? We're Chelsea.
Mhm.
But seriously, I'm looking forward to the matchup on the weekend, just because I don't really know that Chelsea have played a front two like Leicester have, that sort of quality with Iheanacho and Vardy. It'll be interesting to see what we do to match up with that. It's not the one striker, 2 winger thing that's most teams are playing now. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think Tuchel will probably change the tactics too much. But if you drop to a back 4, he did experiment with that in one of the games. I forget, in one of his early games, and it didn't go too well. Just to match up with the 2, we'll see what he does. But recently, Chelsea, their breakout game has been awesome, and their ability to get forward very quickly is really the difference between what we were looking at 2 months ago, when it was sort of that plodding, 1-0 kind of games that we were seeing, to now to the point where we're scoring multiple goals.
Well, I mean, it went from 1-0 to 2-0. So here's my stat of the evening. Right, Chelsea have allowed 9 goals total since April. 5 of them were scored by West Brom.
Yeah. There was Thiago Silva did get a red card in that game, which threw the defense to 6s and 7s. So not making excuses, just providing explanations.
I will say this, though. You have to give Frank Lampard some credit for going out and getting Eduard Mendy. What a pickup that has been. I mean,
absolutely.
Well, also,
his play against Real Madrid was I mean, I thought it was, of course, teams are going to constantly go and talk about Thibaut Courtois because he is the fashionable player to talk about when it comes to goalkeeping. Mendy is not getting the credit he deserves from an international perspective. He's not. And it's sad because I have been thoroughly impressed with his play this year.
You know why Mendy doesn't get the credit.
Yes, I know.
I know. And we can all...
He doesn't play a position that typically people who look like him play. We all know that.
And he's from Africa.
No, he's not. That's the thing. He's French. He was born in France. He was raised in France. He chose to play for Senegal, which is probably but
that's
still
the issue.
That guy is a world-class goalkeeper. He's one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world.
He is phenomenal. He's a phenomenal keeper. He has added stability to that back line.
Yes.
And I agree. And I think that's the big thing, Mike, before we get in and we transition from this to the lower division talk. Chelsea will run in as favorites, right? I think the problem is if they come out, like you said, losers, if they somehow lose and Leicester gets this, right? I think it will look worse on Chelsea and Tuchel going into the Champions League final, then it will better for, it'll be a big deal for Brendan Rodgers, first trophy, Leicester, first trophy since they won the league, it'll be a big deal for them. But what the talking point is going to be is, how did Chelsea lose this game?
And two finals in a row in the FA Cup.
Yeah, 2 FA Cup finals in a row, both against perceived inferior opponents. And I've got to say, there's one way to keep your job at Chelsea, and that's keep winning trophies.
Win trophies. All right, so why don't we turn our attention to give us the latest from the lower divisions?
Well, the lower divisions, they did end this week, and in quite dramatic fashion. In the championship anyway, we had a relegation battle that I don't know, the way I was watching the game. If you watch, and we're fortunate enough to get championship football on the ESPN app here in the United States, when you're watching on the app, you can watch the two games side by side. And in 1 minute, it went from.
You'll have to text me how, because I couldn't figure that out. But
yeah, I'll go over it with you off air.
Yeah, we'll do it off air. Yeah.
But at the exact same time, Rotherham were giving up the goal that gave them the draw that sent them down, and Derby were being awarded the penalty and scoring the penalty that kept them up. It was side by side. It was great. So Wayne Rooney got to stay up in the championship. But now we've got playoff football.
Yeah.
We know that
well, the Brentford Bournemouth game, I feel like the team that gets promoted is going to be out of this particular bracket. All right. I just feel like, look, Brentford can put the ball in the net. We've seen that all year. They can score goals, and they can score goals in bunches. And they've looked like the team, at least for the vast majority of the season, that was most deserving for promotion, especially outside of the teams that seem to ping pong back and forth, mainly Watford and your favorite team of Norwich. So, but you're looking at Brentford also playing against a team that has had a good long stretch in the Premier League and are easily looking to bounce back up very, very quickly. So I just feel like this is a stronger side as far as which team comes out of here, that I just don't see Barnsley or Swansea really going to be able to handle the pressures of Wembley. And actually, I shouldn't say that about Swansea, because Swansea has won a cup before. But I just get the sense in my gut that the winner of that team, of this particular playoff, is going to be the one that wins Wembley.
I don't know. Well, I mean, in a one-off game, I don't really know, because I'll say this: Brentford, Bournemouth. You've got Ivan Toney, the all-time single-season leader in goals in the championship, coming off a League One Player of the Year, and transfer. Bournemouth have 8 of the top 25 ranked players by transfermarkt.com according to their value. Bournemouth's problem all season has been lack of leadership. They fired their coach.
The dumbest thing they could have done. I'm sorry, that was stupid. That's just my opinion, but I thought that was stupid.
And I mean, because of COVID, they like couldn't get anyone. It was supposed to be Thierry Henry, and then it wasn't. And there were rumors that COVID was the reason why that didn't happen. So if they fired him for Thierry Henry and didn't have all the dots on lines, I mean, that was on them. Maybe they deserve another another year in the championship.
I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
But I mean, Swansea have the Golden Gloves winner. If it's a one game and it breaks down into a defensive battle, I mean, I'd like to see Brentford versus Swansea. Get that offense versus defense. Like, let's see who's going to win this. That's true. Course, Brentford have never been to the top tier of English football, so that'd be a great story. Barnsley spent 1 year there. in the late 90s. It's the only year of their existence, with their over a century of existence, that they've been in the top flight. So there's two good stories there. Bournemouth, if Bournemouth goes up, the same three that went down will go back up.
Right.
That's really boring.
Which would be really boring. Yeah. It would be boring.
But as you go into lower league, there's always good stories of recovery. Barnsley have had financial trouble. Swansea have had financial trouble. There's good stories all around. But another interesting thing is the model of Brentford. Brentford have decided not to go the academy route, and are doing this sort of buy medium, sell high on players to fund their programs, which has so far worked out swimmingly. Last year they were in the playoffs. They sold off their best two players, who happened to be Ollie Watkins and I'm
the other one.
Yeah, the other one.
The other one who's not Ollie Watkins.
Yeah. But and they're still back. Not only that, they're the top seed in the playoffs. So interesting to see how this model works. If this model takes them to the Premiership for the first time, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
How about Wayne Rooney making a great escape?
Can I just say this? That Wayne Rooney gets a team 1 year, takes a team that's high middle of the table, and puts them almost in relegation. Frank Lampard had the same team, took them from middle of the table to almost promotion. So can we settle an argument for all time? Frank Lampard is better than Wayne Rooney.
As a manager, I might concede that.
The best thing about the Wayne Rooney, though, Rooney
that's
said
all throughout all of
no,
yeah.
we're not going there. No.
Well, but Wayne Rooney did say, though, he said that no matter what happens, if they got relegated, he was going to stick with Derby as their League One manager next year. And I was like, yeah, because that's the only place where you would be accepted as a manager right now, Wayne Rooney. No offense. I love you for what you did for DC United. I hate you for the years you played at Manchester United, but no, you're going to stick with Derby because you also have nothing else to do.
I will say this to you too, Stead. I know, I've been thinking about, but with the accumulation of talent that Norwich have right now coming up, they've already been promoted. Mm-hmm. If the rosters of today were just static and what they would be going through next season, I would not relegate Norwich next year.
I agree completely. Because with the squad that they went down with, there were already some hawks circling that squad, and they somehow were able to hang on to their players. I mean, especially like Todd Cantwell and Max Aarons. They were able. In Arsenal is still sniffing around Max Aarons, but Norwich is like, no, these are our guys, and they stuck with their coach as well. So you have to applaud that level of consistency and have to know, okay, they've done it once before. They've come up and they got beat up and they came back down, but that's the same squad, and you have to imagine that they're going to come up with a different mindset, different mentality, and kind of 2 more years of experience, because you can count that relegation year as like a kind of a year for them to kind of figure things out and play together as well at a high level of the championship to really hone their skills. That could be a team that has that early kind of like I think of Hull City a while ago where they were in 4th after like the first couple of months of the season, and then kind of they ended up finishing 17th, but they still sort of hung around. You could see Norwich totally doing that next year, and I could see Norwich and Leeds having some really exciting games.
I think so. And the emergence of Buendia, big question, is Timo Pukki too old to do it? He'll be 32 next year.
Yeah.
He was never Wayne Rooney. So
again, he'll score 5 goals in the first 4 games and then 5 goals in the next 10, 20 games.
That's what he does.
It's good that we can get a little bit excited about Norwich coming back and hope that they can stick and stay. Sometimes the yo-yo goes up and it just sticks. I don't
Well,
know
Brighton
how
and Hove is going down next year, so
I
they're
mean,
going, they're going
I-
down next year. They're going down.
you know what? This year they're 10 points above relegation. It's if it finished now, it would be the most of their entire time, and it's got
Mhm.
nothing to do with them and everything to do with the fact that Fulham just can't win a game.
It is.
Fulham are one
Absolutely.
of the most unlucky teams in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
For as well as they've played, for them to be in the position that they're in, is a bit surprising.
Mhm.
When you look at it, what can we say about Sheffield United, right? They blew their load the first half of last year,
Mhm.
and it really caught up to them. If it were a standard season without the COVID of last season and the fixture congestion of this season, maybe the Blades would stick and stay.
Mhm.
I don't know the same for Fulham if they were just a little too thin. It's hard to say.
Mhm.
I mean,
What do you?
you look? I mean, I saw, and maybe I should start my own podcast, and we'll spend like 2 hours every week just dedicated to Chelsea loanees and what they're doing. But Ruben Loftus-Cheek looked like bored out there, like he didn't really care, which they really needed him to be more than that. And I know he's like coming back off an injury, a stupid injury that he should have never suffered. But he just didn't look all there. And now, I mean, there's been
Well,
comparisons.
how would you feel if you were Ruben Loftus-Cheek? You played in the England team. You were in contention for one of the few coveted midfield spots in that. You were considered at one point in time to be a mainstay on the Chelsea roster, and now you're playing at the bottom of the table. Like, ugh.
Yeah, you got relegated. But hey, man, you're back with the main team next year, probably.
You're coming back with the main team, but now you're not the wonderkind anymore. That's Mason Mount.
Yeah.
And
even Calum Hudson-Odoi has a better shot of playing than he does.
Yeah,
Loftus-Cheek isn't a center back. He's built like one.
He's built like one. He's a little more, to me, he's a little more defensive than what they've got, but he's just not as good at that position as somebody like N'Golo Kante is. And I don't think he works back into the team and they hand him that holding midfield role,
especially
again.
with Conte's form right now. I mean, geez,
yeah.
he's playing like he did 2-3 years ago when he was probably like, when we used to say he's the best player at what he does. Like, there's probably no one better at their position than he is at his position. I mean, you saw him in the last few. You just like, geez, it's when he's on, really, really on. It's scary. It's scary to be an attacking player.
It's scary because of how effective he is at what he does. How effective he is at tackling, and then the ball does not travel, right? He puts a slide tackle in, the ball stays right there. He recovers, gets up, and initiates the attack. He is not a big man.
No.
He, for him to be,
he's listed at 5'6", and I'm like, that's being nice.
He looks like he's about 5'5", maybe 120, soaking wet, and he is,
and he's tough as
nails, and he is just lethal at what he does, and he enables so much of what Chelsea is doing right now, because as we said, when he is on, 2/3 of the earth are covered by water. The other third is covered by N'Golo Kante. Right. And so you don't have another player who can do what he does.
Which spells bad for Loftus-Cheek just being on that squad. I mean, he might. Yeah, if he wants to just hang out for a while because he is young, and and Kante is getting close to the dreaded 30, but still. So
in other lower league stuff, Sheffield Wednesday doesn't survive. They go down.
Yeah, I mean, tough break for Sheffield Wednesday. They went from They were one goal away from remaining.
Yeah. And
in
we're
the
winning
league.
that game too.
Yeah, they were winning, and they gave away a stupid penalty, and instead of remaining in the league, they finished bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Which hurts.
Mhm.
But Wigan, we talked at length about the administration and stuff at the beginning of the season, and that whole convoluted situation that Wigan found themselves in. Wigan does stick. So
They
good
do.
news for them.
They held on there in League One. They were, in free fall. But they managed to stay above Rochdale. They clinched that already last week. And they lost their last game, but they were safe.
They were safe.
It's interesting though, the league, when you look at the League One playoffs, it's a shame that Portsmouth didn't make it. The Portsmouth lost in their last game, which allowed Oxford, who doesn't Sean is that Sean's team?
No, he's
No,
Exeter.
Exeter.
That was League Two, but the League Two, that got, because they were in it. They got bumped. Yeah.
But if Portsmouth had held on, it would have been 3 former Premier League teams in the playoffs. And you got Blackpool, you've got Sunderland, everyone's favorite team, Lincoln City, who
the Red Imps.
The Imps.
Hey,
but
they always pop.
upsetters.
Exactly. They always pop up in a cup game, and they'll sit there like, wait a minute, we're in the quarterfinals. Who gets to draw Lincoln City this time? And do you really want to play them?
Yeah, I mean, came from a non-league. They were the deepest run in the FA Cup for a non-league side ever, and used that to build themselves up. Now they've got a chance to go to the championship. In just 5 years,
which is bonkers.
That's huge.
And
I mean, that's the joy of this
but that's what makes it fun.
Nobody wants to get rid of.
Yeah.
Sunderland till they die. I mean,
they have to win. But the better story, Sunderland can't stay in League One more year. They just can't.
I mean, we say that like
no, it's Sunderland.
You look at the teams that are still down in League One.
Hey,
there are a host of names that we have seen at some point in the Premier League, and teams that we don't necessarily believe historically should be down there. Hull City, well, they won automatic promotion. They're going back to the championship. Blackpool in 3, Sunderland in 4, Charlton in 7, Portsmouth in 8. Ipswich is another team that we're all familiar with from a variety of reasons down in 9th.
But Wimbledon in 19th, Wigan in 20th. I mean,
Wigan in 20th,
we've
Wimbledon
seen top flight. Yeah.
Well, Wimbledon, I don't think.
Well, they're now MK Dons, but
but still, these teams down there that have just sunk, and we bid a fond farewell to from League One going to League Two to Northampton, Swindon Town, and Bristol Rovers.
But Peterborough, who are automatically coming up, good story. Like I said, they sold off the League One Player of the Year last year, Ivan Toney, to Brentford, and managed to have the top goal scorer again this year. So it's a credit to their organization that they're able to retool like that, and have the players to bring that on, and they'll be in the championship again next year. Will Ivan Toney play against his old team? Time will tell. I think Brentford are going to do it. And in League One, I think Blackpool are going to do it. Their form recently has been good.
Brentford's another team though that didn't, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Brentford find themselves in or about a cup final not too long ago?
Was it the League Cup?
Yeah, it might have been.
Because honestly, if it was the League Cup, I probably don't watch that final.
Yeah, I was going to say, I probably didn't watch it.
like
Because
seriously, I
they
probably watched
are Brentford are the ones that wear the Harry Potter uniforms, right?
well, they're like red and white.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought there's a team that wears the Harry Potter Gryffindor uniforms, the red and yellow stripes.
They have worn those in the past, yes.
Yeah, that's how I know Brentford. They were they're like channeling Gryffindor Quidditch. But they definitely found themselves in or about like a League Cup semifinal or something not too long ago. And another team that we would like to it'd be nice to see somebody who's not the teams that we just recently saw. Like, I like getting new blood into the Premier League. It is worth thinking about the fact that of the teams that stuck and stayed in the one team that stuck and stayed in the Premier League this year with Leeds, who we hadn't seen in forever. Yes, they're a former Premier League team, but they're also the one that we hadn't seen in the longest. And they were the ones that managed to come up and be the ones to stick and stay.
Yeah. But to all of our credit, all of us picked them to stick and stay.
It wasn't really hard when you looked at who their manager was, the amount of money,
and the way they won the championship the year before.
And speaking of random things, I read this today, and before we get too far off the lower league and stuff like that, and while we're still thinking about managers and things like that, I read a very interesting rumor, Stead and Mike, on the BBC, that Jorge Mendes is trying to get Uncle Nuno to Aston Villa.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, which begs a number of questions. He feels no longer that Wolves ownership is willing to put out the money to be successful, which is fine. I could understand you wanting to move your manager to a club that has more financial resources and is dedicated to being good. And yes, Villa definitely have a bigger stadium and should have a larger fan base, but
I don't know. The rivalry runs deep, but with nothing else going on in Birmingham right now,
and
the second city of England.
It's the second city of England, but one would imagine, like, is Dean Smith's job under that much threat, considering the fact that they're like 12 points better than they were this time last season,
and threatening for Europe a lot of the year too?
Yeah, I couldn't see why. They've overperformed. I don't know. I think people get lost in names. Nuno had success. He was 7th last year in the league. Brought a team up, but what do you do this year? I don't.
Well, and that's part of the thing that we've talked about is sometimes you have a manager like Nuno who may have stayed at a team a year too long, right?
Yeah.
When you get rid of Jota, when Jimenez goes down with an injury,
and when you bring in an 18-year-old kid and expecting him to step in and be able to replace the way. That's a lot to put on a kid that age. It's a lot.
And to say, like, okay, Nuno can't, and well, what did he do this season? If you thought he was a good manager last year, is he still a good manager this year? Have you learned anything radically different? Because I can make the same argument about Jurgen Klopp, right? Well, Jurgen Klopp won the Champions League 2 years ago, and he won the Premier League last year, but look at them now. Liverpool may not qualify for the Champions League. In fact, they may find themselves in the Europa Conference League. Well, let's fire Jurgen Klopp.
That's always my solution. I'm a Chelsea fan. Just fire him. Who cares? We'll get someone else.
He'll get another job somewhere else. No big deal.
I just found it interesting. Like, of all the clubs that you could be rumored to want to be invested in, it would be Aston Villa, because of all the clubs that seem to be like there's really no job opening there that I didn't understand that Dean Smith was under threat. Like I would have thought like he would have gotten at least another season out of this deal.
I mean, especially with the improvement year over year, it doesn't. I don't know. I don't see the reason for that. And again, to me, if you've got something that works, you've got to. I mean, to me, their problem isn't really. It's not management. It's talent. And if you're not going to have the talent to compete with the top 5-6 teams to get into Europe, and you're not really trying to, which I think they are. I think they've made steps, but their outlays are not what the top 5 or 6 teams are making.
It's also
why, are you why hook your star to a long shot guy who's he's going to do the same with the talent he has. What if he does worse? That's the thing. If going to Europe is only an outside shot for you, and it's a real wish and a prayer, and it's a hope, but it's not, it's not definitely like you've assembled 300 million pounds worth of talent, and this guy is just not taking you there. Then why change? You saw improvement. I don't get it.
I would not change. I would stick and stay. Although I do think that Nuno may be a slightly better manager than Dean Smith is. I wouldn't change because here's a guy who's been working with these players. And if you hire Nuno, you're getting a new manager and a new system. And why chop and change? Because you don't know that the players that you currently have that function well in the system that you're currently playing are going to adapt well. We've all seen that, right? Managers no longer come in and say, I'm going to take a look at the players that I have and figure out how to work with them. We always said that was what Sam Allardyce does best, is come in, look around and say, here's the landscape, here's how I've got to play, right?
I mean, it's upside. That's the only thing is you've decided that you're gonna put $50 on 36 and watch them spin the roulette wheel. That's what they're doing there. It's upside. Whereas you're getting there, and you don't want to go like this. You want to go like this, and you accept this as opposed to this. I don't.
Perhaps even more so to me, I found recently instead, Mike, and I don't know if you guys agree. I think the player transfer market is interesting. I think sometimes the manager transfer market, the manager merry-go-round, is even more interesting because of just the way that names get mentioned, they get hired, they get fired. It's a lot easier to hire and fire a manager than it is to hire and fire 40 players. But gentlemen, we're up against it. This has been a lot of fun tonight. Just to
can I just throw in League Two, just
real quick,
20 seconds,
please.
Bolton Wanderers, a former Premier League side, automatic promotion. I've got Newport County coming up out of the playoffs. They gave Tottenham fits in the FA Cup earlier in the year. But if you want something, if you want a story to hook onto, check out Forest Green. They wear green tiger jerseys, and their team is all vegan. Their owner's a huge hippie. They just today swore off gambling sponsorship, and have come up out of the depths of the conference, which is what's below League Two. So check it out.
Well,
I mean,
we'll take a look at Forest Green, although I can't get down with the vegans.
Well, look, I every time I say, I don't know if you're a English EDM drum and bass head, you'll recognize the name because that's a popular song by an artist that I've followed for about 20 years, named High Contrast. So I saw that name and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go check these guys out. So that was the game I was really looking forward to watching. Hopefully we'll be able to, but I was like, I gotta see what this Forest green team is, because I can actually hear the song in my head right now. If you guys are curious at all,
One,
I was
I'll
fine.
one wonders if they would have had automatic promotion if they had the proper amino acid content in their diet.
Yes, I don't believe vegetables are what food eats. So yeah, we got to hit the bricks. Before we go, number one, we need to give a special shout out to a good friend of the pod, El Haji. We haven't had him on to talk African football in a little bit, and we'll get him back on. But Eid is Wednesday, I believe, and want to give him a big shout out and hope that he and his family have a safe and enjoyable holiday. As always, our best thoughts and prayers go to London and Sean. He had some stuff going on with the family tonight. We hope he's doing well, and we expect to see him back probably next week. Thanks to Celtic Cam. It was good to talk to him, even if there wasn't any news from to talk about. And especially thanks to Bayern Rob for explaining the German managerial merry-go-round. Apparently, it got more complicated because there are managers who are supposed to have jobs who are not going to have jobs. And instead, you and I are still going to end up managing in Bundesliga too.
That's right.
Thank you, Chelsea Mike, for delving into the depths of the lower leagues. Earlier, Stead and I were having a discussion as to whether we would rather watch the Scottish Premier League or lower league English football. I don't think you settled that one for us, but it was nice to hear about what was going on down in the comings and goings.
This is what a soccer weirdo I am. I watched 2 games in the soccer championship last month, in the Scottish championship last month.
Okay.
I'll watch any game anywhere, no matter what.
Yes, we've officially decided that you're weird, but good luck this Sunday as Chelsea takes on Leicester. Stead, I'm going to make another really bold prediction. Super bold prediction.
Super Bowl.
A team whose primary color is blue will win the FA Cup.
I'll give you 1-to-1 odds.
Give me 1-to-1 odds. I'll take
give
them.
you 1-to-1.
1-to-1 odds that a team that's primary color is blue will win the FA Cup.
I will have to double check on that one.
Yeah. So, my man, it's been fun.
This was fun. This was a good one.
Mhm.
Guys, we wanted to go low key. We went low key, and we still burned through 2 hours without even realizing it.
Every once in a while, it's good to throw one of these out here. It's been a hectic couple of months. I'm glad that, no ESL talk, no VAR talk, no anxiety, just a good beer-filled conversation about football. Just what the soul needed.
Absolutely. Anytime we can talk lower league.
No one on before me talked about how in Turin they were going to play scrimmages against themselves because they're the only game that they could get.
Yes,
because there is no ESL and they won't be.
we purposely decided to go against that. We figured we needed a break from all of this, right? It has been a rough 2 weeks, and it was nice to have a weekend where the football on the field was what spoke for the sport rather than the machinations of billionaire owners behind the scenes arguing with confederations over who has the best bad idea, right? So
and anytime we can talk lower league football for a half an hour, I'm going to get really excited. So
yes. Well, we're going to have to do more of this because we've got the playoffs coming up, and Mike's going to have to come back and let us know who is going to be the victor in the world's most profitable game. All right, man, that was fun. We did all right this week, and we'll check you out next week. For Stead, Chelsea Mike, Bayern Rob and Celtic Cam. I'm Mike, and this has been the Too Many Guys Soccer Show.